All right, all right. Good night, good night. Welcome to the Fatherhood Think Tank. I want to welcome everybody here. Fathers alike, please at this time, please like, share, and subscribe so you can be notified, or just that you can like what we're talking about tonight. All right, all right. Good night, good night. I am Dr. Ron, the Fatherhood Think Tank curator. We have our fathers here tonight, and tonight we're going to be talking about a topic that is just recently I observed in the mass media, and I thought it would be a good idea to have a conversation with our fathers and where they are with it and how they would look at it and build this conversation. Also, a big part. I just want to, I got a message from our good brother Tenny. He says he's not going to make it tonight, but I just want to send him my blessings and and, and good lookings. I know that sometimes we take for granted people that come regularly all the time, and if they can't make it, we have to know that we need to think of them and be blessing for them. Um, and I know that like Born seconds this, he'll be praying for the brother um, as much as possible. Well, with that being said, again, I'm going to let the fathers who are here right now introduce themselves, and then we're going to get into our topic for tonight. And the topic again is I like to take stuff sometimes stuff straight out the media. Right now in Jacksonville, Florida, there's this case that's going on, and the topic was, would you testify against your child? So we're going to look at this, examine it, and have some discussions about it. Go ahead, guys. Introduce yourself. I see it's Travis and Mike.
Hey, good morning. I'm sorry, good morning. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7 young adults, 3 young women, 4 young men, one granddaughter, and one grandson. Matter of fact, my granddaughter's birthday is this month, so I got to remember that. Either way, it's always a pleasure to be here.
All right. Good evening, guys. How y'all doing? I am a father of 2 young boys trying to be athletes, of a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old. And of course, I'm a mentor and a father figure to many. And I appreciate this honor to have this conversation.
All right, great. So I'm sure some more people will click on as the time comes. It's getting close to that time, and it's funny. It's getting closer to getting back to school time. So I know this. We'll be coming up with a school topic soon, but this topic was just heavy in the high headlines. And I can say personally, I'm going to say that I used the picture of this guy, this father that's in this situation, but I don't. Let's say this: I know him, but I don't know him. And sometimes you can know people and don't know him. I knew him a long time ago, right? The father in this situation. I knew him when we sat in the same class together at the same desk, laughing it up, joking around, and what have you. And I faintly still remember the last time I ever seen him, and I never seen him from then. Um, I'm not going to disclose that, but I'll just say I remember the last time I seen him, and it was at school. But the last time I seen him, and I never got to see him again until incidents were more involved with his children, and then it was this whole scenario, his children's life, and me paying attention to young people, and a lot of times when you're dealing with young people and what they have going on, you say, "Hey, where their parents are," or even one better, who are their parents? When you see some of the things they're getting involved with, to just give a backstory so people have a good understanding, this father has a son. His son is on trial for some murders in the city. Some murders. A lot of evidence to maybe say that Maybe the son did it, maybe not. It's all alleged. It's all in court right now. But there was some incidents where the father had either came to pick up the son from some places or something or another. And this is how the father got involved with this whole situation. Anyway, as we know, the court system, if you don't know by now, if you're involved with something, the court system finds a way, will always find a way to put somebody as an accessory. So right now, the three, me, Lightborn, Travis on this thing. I leave from out of here and go commit a heinous crime. They may even come to the conclusion that Lightborn and Travis, and then they'll say, "Hey, you accessory. You knew he was going to do it, or are you going to come and testify to something he did or some another?" So anyway, the father ended up had his own charges brought against him around the cases around was involving his son, and he, a couple last week sometime was on the stand and testified to things about his son. So I'm leaving that there. If you want to look it up, you can go look up the Queso murder trial, and not just him, but some other people, whole thing, and this and that. But tonight we really want to kind of talk about what does it mean to be a father, and that could you and would you, or why would you testify on your children? So I throw that, I put that all together, guys. You can think about it. And I know that this conversation is going to be very interesting because we are a group of people who are in many instances caught in a very unique situation when it comes to the justice system, law, order, and what could happen. So it would be a great opportunity for us to talk about it. I can't talk about their situation because I don't know their situation. I don't know what relationship the father and the son. I don't know any of that. But I can bring that conversation to us as fathers who have sons and daughters. What would we do in that situation? What would make us testify in the court of law on our children?
I guess I
know. Listen.
That's weird. Honestly, when I heard about it, when in passing, I think that's the most interesting situation. I feel that whole dynamic of relationship between the dad being in prison for whatever time and him getting out, and then basically causing, and I always go, let's go deeper. Like, honestly, I'm the type of person, I look past just the fact that he was the father and he testified to his son. I say, I look at it like spiritually, like how those spirits tried to destroy his family, and he allowed it to. Because I mean, if you really think about, as we being fathers, like, our job is to protect our own kids, protect our family, and those spirits was attacking him, and he allowed those spirits to not just take him down, but take his whole family down. And I think that's so like I mean, for you to actually testify this the key testifier of on your own kids. I feel like it's more like not about a father and a son, but dang, like, you really destroyed your whole family for real.
Yeah,
like the legacy behind that is.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, Travis, because in actuality, the testifying is not just because his son is not on trial by himself. His son is also on trial with his nephew. And the part that I thought of, and I think about all of this, is the audacity of you to testify on your children or on a child. And one thing I like to always say is, what model have you gave that child? Right? So it's one thing I think of the idea of someone saying, well, I will not testify on my child if they did it or didn't do it or what have you. But I think that sometimes we have to look at how people are are raising their children, what they have done to raise their children. Because in some instances, and remembering historical history in this country, someone could convince you to come testify on something that could not be true about your child. Could put you in a disposition that will, make you look like you should testify against your child. I feel very uncomfortable even thinking about that, but I also put some of this in a context of it challenges me on what kind of father what kind of parent you are. Not just a father, but the kind of parent you are is that someone could even have the reach to come and use you against your child.
That's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, Ron, this question is, the topic is Jedi mind trick, and let me tell you why. I think it's one of America's greatest Jedi mind tricks, and let me tell you why. I can think about so many instances where Black people were hung and everybody had factual, law enforcement and people that were in position to testify against those Black people that were hung and killed and murdered. They wouldn't testify against their own community. Now, notice I said that their own community, and I didn't even say their own children. And so if they wouldn't testify against their own community or their own culture, then why would I press my people on testifying against, and why would this even be an issue for my people testifying against their own children? The Jedi mind trick happens when we just assume, because it's not what they're saying, but it's what they're not saying. It's the fact that a man, even if he was guilty, couldn't intervene to stop his child from becoming guilty. And so we would have never seen him as a preventionist or an interventionist. You understand? We just automatically deemed him guilty. And so if that man had a right to try to save his son, you understand, and you want to take your RICO or HICO or whatever the hell the government used right now to use it as the new crack laws to lock Black men up, because that's all the RICO is right now, is the new crack laws to lock men up just on speculation. And we don't know that man's involvement, whether he was trying to save his son or not. I've had instances when I was trying to save my little, and I'm an only child, but my little cousin who was like a little brother to me. I got word, because I used to be in the streets, so I got words by the time I came out the street that he was in the streets. You understand? And so my job naturally is to try to prevent him and protect him and save him from going down the path that I was saved and spared from not going down. Nonetheless, he chose his path, and it cost him 25 years in prison. All right. And so to say that a Black man or a Black father or Black anybody, any good Black man who cares, don't have a right to be an interventionist, don't have a right to save their child. You understand? And then you're going to switch it and use it to your benefit to play some kind of game, the Jedi mind trick game, because you want to win some type of case. You understand? I need to know what that man's direct involvement was, not what his guilt is. You understand? But was he guilty of being involved in killing people with his child? Or was he guilty of trying to save his child from killing people? And that's the narrative I'm not hearing, and that can be absolutely true. But Black people, we done got so cowardly and so scared. And I think intellectualism, really, I'm talking about literally intellectualism, has tore the spine out of Black culture. And we'll jump to anything social media or any media say, and without trying to get the facts. And so for me, as for what the Bible said, as for me and my house, you understand? We're going to have to know the true narrative, the real narrative, and I'm going to have to get it from my people, not some secondhand social media, whatever. Okay? And I think we've become so cowardly that we're better at tearing each other down than we are at building each other up. And I don't even think we care to do that. And as a result of that, let me tell you the result, just in case you don't know. As a result of that, the study saying, and the study that as we speak right now, the study says by 2053, black people will have no equity. Zero equity. And that's not just economically. It starts ethically. You understand? When the Bible say, what does the gain of the man what does it what does it benefit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? Simply mean, if I can compromise you ethically, economically, it's easy because I already got your economics. And so I think we're falling apart just on ethics because we don't even want to know if a black man has some truth to tell. I don't think we even asked him. You understand? We just took whatever it was. He testified on the stand. I'm like, yeah, but what was the ramification behind it? You understand? What was the pressure behind that? And if this man is out and he's trying to save one son, right? And he's trying to save one son and he got maybe 3 or 4 other ones that needs saving. You understand? Then now he's forced to sacrifice one to save the other 4. And the thing about this is black women do this every day. Literally, some knucklehead child of theirs, 1 out of 5. You understand? Every day she's going out to jailhouse. She's bailing them out. She's getting the house shot up, everything to try to save this one kid, but at the expense of the other 4. At some point, you got to determine when to let go. And I need to know this man let go story before I actually try to create a narrative that's not true. And I'm going to leave it right there for now.
Yeah, but that's why I didn't want to go so much into his story, because it wouldn't be his story, his son's story, other sons, the whole story wouldn't be one that we could really. There's some such questions about justification and what is justified, right? The issue that I think I wanted to put up is that as a father, if you have done things, and what I'm saying, I do believe the reason why they have the opportunity to even get him involved with these incidents is because he did do what a father would do. If my son said, come and pick me up from somewhere, I'm going to come and pick him up, right? But then also, another part of that is almost that what type of father have you been that your son will not listen to? You will help your son in one situation, but seems like he won't listen to you in another. And it is a strange mix there to try to figure out, have you given up on him? When did you give up? What are you at the point that you're saying, hey, I'm not about to take no 20 years for something I told you not to do, or something I told you stop doing, or something or that another, because I tried to help you. Now I'm caught up in your mess because I'm your father. But then the part of that comes back to me that I have to evaluate is, but what have you done to avoid him from doing that prior to getting in this kind of mess and doing these kind of things? I mean, there is basically at some point, I kind of feel like as I follow the case, and again, the case is now, but the story has been since 2020, 21. This stuff has been going on and has been happening, and so even prior to this, because him, the father and all his sons and people were in a car, and the car got shot up. So they were all in the car got shot up. One of the sons, who was a rapper, died, and then from there, it just, you've seen that this turned into like and I like to put it like this. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge this and don't want to accept that. We only think trauma affects people like in the war, or trauma only affects victims who are who we see as victims. We don't realize that sometimes trauma causes people to become predators. It causes them to lose their own humanity, and we don't think about that very often. I think about a lot of these cases similar to this is, what is making these young men lose all of their humanity, not care about anything. And I'd have to go back and say, it might be the trauma that triggered them to lose this, to lose. Like, I mean, here's a quote. So after the alleged murder, that if he did or not did, he posted on social media. The young man posted that I just killed I just killed a nigga. Now I'm going to get my toes done, and posted that on social media. So you have that whole thing, and then I think his father had told him to take the post down after he heard he had posted it. These kind of things. But it's one of these things that it comes back to why I thought this was an important topic to talk about is what collateral do we have as fathers that we can convince our children to do or not do things when we have maybe not given, we haven't poured enough into them to pull to say, don't do this, sit down, shut up, and not in an authoritarian way, just as the word of reason to our children. And that's where I kind of look at this situation, that the children even be this far-fetched, because you was a man who was in the street. You was a man who did street things. You were a man who been there. And at some point, you know what to tell your children not to do and to do, but where is the part that's missed that they will listen to you or follow your rules or at least fear you enough? Like, I fear my dad enough that it's some things I will not do. And he's not a gangster or anything like that, but I fear him in some way. So that's a deeper, I think it's such a deep thing to even, but I think it comes back to this, the fear that we would have for our dad. I know for sure if I did it, I didn't do it, or whatever I did, you won't get Gerard Williams on no stand to tell people anything or do anything. I know that for fact. It's not, I don't have to question, I don't have to wonder. I know that he would be completely supportive of me no matter what anybody said, because he's my father. Period.
So Ron, how y'all doing? I just wanted to kind of chime in. I'm sorry about my tardiness. I hear some stuff in the background. Of course, I'm here at band practice for my daughter, but I think part of the problem is that the reason this mentality is right now is because we have a lot of our kids living in a fantasy world, what they see on TV and things like that, and they feel that they're untouchable. So with that thought of being untouchable, it lessens the quote unquote the fear of what authority has to say, because they can see, let's say for instance, you watch a show like Power, you see Tariq get away with some stuff, and they think that it's transitional to their everyday living, when in fact, all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure. And when you, as parents and as fathers, when we try to tell you, like, hey, you either know somebody that's been through this, and what you see on TV is not what you get, I think they can't decipher from that reality, that fantasy versus that reality. So I think a lot of it has to deal with that. And then sometimes, in all honesty, they got to go through something in order to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Versus, we can tell our children that the stove is going to be hot, but until they touch that stove, they ain't going to realize it. So sometimes reality needs to be that fantasy world that they think that they can get past. And when they see that reality is really what the reality is, that's the only way they're going to learn. So that's what I would say on that.
And sometimes, but and I think the part of, I think that when you think about a show like, you bring power up, right? You bring power, and I think about a show like Power really presents what the problem is, right? When you think about the original Power, yes, Ghost was doing the stuff he was doing, right? He was doing him and Tommy was doing what they did, but he wanted another life for his son, right? He wanted his son and daughter and his kid and his 3 kids to have completely different lives. He was going to use that. He was going to do that, what I call the American way. I'm just keeping it 100. He was using what the American way was, regardless what people like it or not. He was using the American way so he could have the American dream with his family and his kids be able to have that, right? But what I think occurred, it was too many other people who was like, the life we live in is the American dream, not the one that your dad wants to go to. So we find out that, the idea that in the thought of the mind that Tyreek was the one, if you've never seen Power, I'm about to spoiler alert, whatever. Tyreek is the one who actually shoots his dad. They kill him allegedly, because supposedly he might be dead. This is all a TV show, but allegedly he was the one to do it. And then after that, had his own show where he got away with everything he did that normal people would never get away with. Children see, you think about people seeing that and they think that that's reality. They could do and act out those things, but they don't look at the part that was important. That when Tyree was going to look for, where money and what the wheel was going to read, that his dad set up that he had millions of dollars for him. And to get the millions of dollars, he had to finish school and get his bachelor's degree and move from at that point. Just the idea of those things, people just in the script is there, but people throw it away. They more excited that he was able to hustle that and do that, and that's because there is also in the whole Power book too. There is no person like his dad to say, "Yo, slow down, young man, slow down, brother. You got an opportunity to do some other things, some other ways. So why don't you try to do them?" Instead, he just keep on pushing, getting involved with. You even look at him getting involved with a family whose their dad was all messed up, and that's the reason why their family was. It's like the messages of how. But then again, I like to think about this. You see, Mary J's position doing the same thing. She keeping everything. Everybody else y'all already messed up, so y'all gonna be messed up. But I'm gonna take this one over here, who gonna be our parachute from anything happens in the life. And because you don't organize it right, he even get messed up. He even get killed. He even get out of here. So it says to me that our society needs us more than ever. We pretend like you don't need our fathers. You don't need level-headed fathers who will go out and say this, that, and the other. But it's very clear we need them. We are needed, and many of us need to activate like the Transformers and the Decepticons. We need to activate out here and get with our kids and with other people's kids who respect us.
I'm glad you said that, Ron, because it just triggered on something for me. I think when you mention we need to be out there, right? So if you just let's just look at it from a statistical standpoint, and I hate to do that. I'm just looking at all fathers, not just black fathers, whatever the case may be. When it's our children doing something, we're going to go all in to defend or chastise them, correct? No matter what age they're starting at. But when it's another child that's doing something different, that's doing something inappropriate, we say we have a tendency to turn, not to be as outspoken as it would be with our own child, right? So, why? When did the village get lost as it relates to men, specifically black men? And what causes us, how can we get that back? Because I think for instance, if I saw your daughter, or if I knew your children, and I see them doing something like, nah, we can't do that. They may not know me from a box of rocks, but as a caring black man, hopefully not wanting to see them go down a path that maybe I've gone down, or persons that I know. Why do we become silent? Like, for instance, going to a grocery store and you're seeing a somebody hit their mom, like a baby hit their mom or a toddler hit their mom, and we don't say, hey, now you don't do that, whatever the case may be, or running away from their parents at church. In the grocery store, or even I can recall this, even at church, not long ago, I said something to to a group of children that were just like hitting each other and stuff like that. It's like, no, we don't do that. Don't hit your sister. Don't kick the pew in front of you. Like, and hopefully the parent would have, respected that. Which I think, I don't know if she did or didn't, but at this point, as an adult and as a parent, we need to be those persons to intercede when their quote unquote parents don't, when a child is not doing what they need to do to be a productive citizen, no matter the age.
You know what? I'm sorry I got lost there, Vaughn, but you 100%, and you just set everything up for me, Vaughn, to answer those questions. Dr. Nobel Peace Prize family once said, people would rather be infamous than ignored, right? And so if people would rather be infamous than ignored, this doesn't become a black issue, black man issue. This become a human issue. I don't have to tell you because you can see it from bottom to top. I mean, we got a president who's the most popular and popular guy in the world, but he can't be as popular. Being popular is never enough for him. You understand? And he chose that very advice that Dr. Nobel explained by, which is people rather be infamous than ignored. Now, that's the pressure from the president. Understand that? That's the president of the United States. And so if the president can come to that kind of peer pressure, why we are so shocked, so enamored, so flabbergasted when our children become to that kind of pressure, right? This is a man who has everything he ever wanted in life, and everything in life went his way. Mm-hmm. But yet he still would rather be infamous than ignored. And he does a good job of keeping his name in the media mouth 24 hours a day. And that's before he became president again. And so if that is the president, then how do we explain the presence of our children? And so if the narratives say you're less than zero, right? That's what the narratives say about our children. Then I think back to your village concept, because we got to understand what the village is. The village is 50% voices and 50% vision. The problem and what we have now is we have too many voices and not enough vision. If I ask you what's the vision for the average black person right now, you could even tell me. And I'm talking about as being successful. What is the collective vision for black people right now? The fact that somebody can do a 2020 a study. I'm talking about a study live as we speak. And I think the person may be black because I was not sure if the person was, and I think the person may be of African-American descent. But what I can say, if this is an African-American study that says that the equity of black people will be at zero by the year of 2053, then yes, back to your point, Ron, the trauma is real. Because if your equity collectively is going to be at zero by time 2053, which is exactly 28 years from now, they're saying our collective equity as African Americans will be at zero. Oh, let me throw this part in, this caveat in there. If something doesn't change, that's the part that they. So parenting doesn't need to change. See, we trying to put it on what they call we can't itemize change. Change for African Americans and black people in general, and as a culture, and even as America, has to be collective. And so if we think that change has to be this our children, just exclusively to our children, they're the problem, and then maybe the parents are the problem, and then maybe, and I see everybody preaching a little high and mighty ass services, Jamal Bryant and all the rest of them, about trying to tell people what to do, and nobody's taking accountability for their contribution of the disparities that we're facing right now. See, as a man like a Jamal Bryant, and I love him, but as a man like a Jamal Bryant, I'm like, if you're going to get up and teach a message, teach it from your infirmities. Teach it from your contribution to black decay in our society. And then when you're in, and not only the Bible commands it. He doesn't tell you to talk about, the Bible doesn't tell you to talk, he says you have a right to talk about somebody else's sin first. It says talk from your sins, right? So you can inspire other people to speak about their own sins. That's the rule about talking about sins. And so we're going to talk about the problem, basically, which is sin, and sin is the problem. And we're going to talk about the problems in our community, in our society, or whatever the case may be. We got to talk about, first talk from our contributions to it. That's the whole purpose of this platform. What is your contributions to it? I don't know if this man was doing the best he can to intervene on his child. And guess what? By him coming in guilty, right? Because you said the man served time in jail. And so by this man coming to his child guilty and trying to build a relationship with his child, you know what I'm saying, from an absent parent standpoint of being in jail, some of his child's life, then there's a certain grace that comes along with that. See, now I'm talking black narrative. You understand? I'm bringing the human back to us because a lot of these conversations dehumanize us as if we don't have the same God-given human right other people have. You understand? And what I love about even Ted Bundy, daddy was given the opportunity, you understand, to show the human side of his son. But black people are not. To hell with that with me. You couldn't play. Matter of fact, again, like I said, don't do that around me. Don't bring no negative ass narrative or niggardly narrative around me when it comes to my people. And if you're not going to give them the same human rights that you would give the George Zimmerman and his daddy. You understand? The Kennedys and they daddy. You understand? And so everybody got the right to do wrong but black people. And that's my problem right now. And so I think the only thing poor in our culture is our narrative, because if you don't have the guts, right? If you don't have the guts to come up or know the narrative of your people, God will never bless you with the genius anyway to describe it. So we'll just be asking questions all our life and never be anointed enough to give the answers. I think we should have, especially on any platform, we should always have more answers than questions, especially when it comes to our people. So I'm going to leave it right there for right now. Oh, this wasn't you guys. It was just, I'm just talking figuratively.
Listen, I'm just, as I listen to you, I just think about the complexity that we have in our community. And sometimes you will get the naysayers to say, they'll begin to say, in this situation, oh, that young man killed another young man from our community, this and that. And it would seem as if you would victim blame the person being killed by saying, hey, there's something. But I think this situation is so much bigger than we want to really, we want our situation to be simple and plain. Our situation is not simple and plain. Our situation is very complex. And people then will say, oh, that's an excuse. Well, it's an excuse type of thing that is going on here. Listen, I read an article yesterday that a female baby who was having skin to skin contact with her father on a daily basis ended up getting estrogen put into her body and made her female parts grow, right? And that was like there's a radical thing. And then when I read what the explanation was, it's because the dad was taking hormones and he was putting the baby on his body. And so when people say, when people are sitting somewhere being a naysayer of how this could happen, what could happen, what's right and what's wrong in our community, you're not looking at the bigger picture of our community. There is something that happened that caused that to happen. This young man, right, didn't just go out and become a stone. There's many reasons. Okay, let's say one reason you want to say he might have been a stone killer because he wanted to get revenge for everybody he felt that killed his brother in that car. He might want revenge because he didn't feel love. And he didn't get the love in the kind of, because his dad had multiple children, and he probably didn't spend the time that he could have spent with all of them, depending on his interaction with the moms at the time. So he might have been with this mom, then it could be, one of these things. So he, like you said, if he felt annoyed, well, let me be infamous. I'm gonna be infamous, because that's a big thing about it. Because when we talk about, I can tell you I spent a lot of time on Thursday night talking about Fred Trump, not Donald Trump. I spent a lot of time talking about Fred Trump, because the people I'm talking to are not even looking at Donald Trump. They're thinking about Fred Trump. So I just want to put that in your mind. And yes, that's why he is the way he is, because his dad was a particular type of father. So you wanna look and listen. You ready? That's why Obama was the way he was, because his dad was a different kind of father. We keep trying to make it seem like, why are these people the way they are? Why was they doing this? Well, I'll give you a perfect example. God bless the brother's soul. But Malcolm Jamal Warner was a different kind of guy. But guess why? Because of his father. His father's engagement, how his father moved and grooved and did the things he did, how his relationship with his father, all of that sanctioned the kind of guy he was. That's why people were saying when he passed away, oh my God, we lost a good guy. A guy who was what we would say is on par for the positivity for the continuation of what we should be doing in our communities as a person, as a human being first, then as a Black human being, right? So you don't get it twisted. He was a human being first, but then as a Black human being, he was what you would consider acceptable to everybody and did the right things in some instances, because some of the stuff he did didn't appeal to some people who were human beings who may have not looked like him. Some things he said, some things he advocated for, some things he supported. So we're looking at this sometimes in bigger context. So we're talking about this man and this young man who's a man and his father and their interaction. And we can sit here, and that's why I even brought this topic. We can sit here and debate and talk about it all we want, but it's also proof putting of the bigger issue that affect us in our community and affect us as Black people overall. Because I can tell you, the father is not too far away from how the son is, because I would love to see where his father, because I know this, he obviously, unlike me when we was in high school, right? The thing he did in high school, I don't think his father had any involvement with that, because even his father was even around or whatever. These are the kind of, you just kind of look at what's missing, and then what is continued. And it's so important for us to recognize the cause and effects of things. If I hear one more people say, you're trying to be a victim, you're just trying to make an excuse, you can do better. Guess what? They can. But I'll tell you this, show me a person in a medical emergency that can do better on their own. They can't. They need help. They need someone. You can listen. They show it in the movies. He's so bad. He get the thing. He burned it. He pulled a bullet out himself. He burned himself. That's TV, man. It's TV. It's not real. It's not real. People who get injured, they need help. They need. That's why it's called trauma care. They need somebody to come in, crucial trauma care, to help them. And at many points, our community has continued to be in trauma care.
Well, Ron, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I love you, Ron. I know all the practices out there are crappy practices. Oh, I hate when people just anyway, y'all know how I feel about 50% of the mental health profession. Our community don't suffer from trauma care. community just suffered from self-care, and that's it. We were more than, and put it like this: if we can go from slavery to a free civilization, we need to assess what the hell that is. You understand? We need to assess the sciences of self. I think too many times we are so we're deemed, and I'm gonna have to put this on my intellectual brothers and sisters. We're taught, and I hate the fact that we go to school to become guinea pigs when we should have went to be geniuses, right? You're a guinea pig when you can tell me more about another narrative, and you can tell me the science of other people, and you can't tell me about the science of self. You can't tell me what brought you from slavery to a free society, and the science of that. I'm gonna have a problem with that. You understand? I did one semester of college. There's no way in the world I should know more than you, and you went to a HBCU. And so, because of that, that told me, I said, Lionel, the problem is not consciousness. The problem is care. If the difference between consciousness and care is you can have the consciousness and still have it for what they call status reasons, right? You understand? And so if you functioning in this culture and in this world and in humanity for status reasons, then you'll never know what it is to really have the care to function for service reasons. I think too much of us function from a status standpoint and not from a service standpoint, because a service requires sacrifice. What does that mean? And I've seen it, and I thank God for Liberty City, Miami, Liberty City, and Overtown, and every ghetto in Miami-Dade County that taught me this one thing, because I had a privilege to be a part of this. I've had the privilege to be a part of some of the most notorious gangsters in Miami-Dade County. They got kingpins right now, and I can tell you I know more than about 50 to 75% of those guys. Here's the caveat of that. The village was so instilled in us, right, that I knew it was not only just a right for me to save those guys' children when they went to the pen doing life sentences, 30 years or whatever, but it was also my responsibility. And so I made it my privilege not to I made it my point, rather, to remember all those guys' names. And so when I ran into their children, now these guys they was running and balling in the 80s. By the time the beginning of the 90s came, the feds came through, RICO'd them, swept them up, and they was all looking at life sentences. By the time mid-90s came, I was working, and this is my first introduction to social work in the Liberty City area, and I was servicing their children. You see how that works? And so just to remember that, to let them know that they're there by name, because you got to understand, being infamous, then ignored, infamous still have a certain level of equity that comes along with it. There's a certain kingdom that comes along with it. There's a certain expectation that comes along with it. There's a certain respect that comes along with it. And you can't tell me that respect is worth something over here, right, on this side of town and this side of society, and say it's not worth nothing over here on this side of society. And sometimes if all you got is a respect and a reputation to barter with, and particularly as children, or particularly just to be seen or acknowledged, you understand? And if that is your only bargaining tool, then by all means, use that tool. And a lot of these kids was under the pressure, you understand, and under the identity of their father's infamy. Notice what I said. They was under the identity and the equity of their father's infamy, because they could mention their father's name. And you got to understand the double-edged sword of this kind of stuff. You understand? The double-edged sword is saying, you know what? My father was bad, but I can mention his name and something good happened. What is that? I could mention my father's name and somebody would buy me a pair of Michael Jordans. I could mention my father's name, my bad father's name, in the community where I'm from, and something good happened. How do you negotiate that? That's the reality. And so when people talk about the excuse, I'm like, no, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, because you're not knowledgeable enough to really speak to that side of the experience. So you see the experience as an excuse, which makes you a coward. Because you can never, I ain't talking about you, Ron, but I'm talking about anybody that would call it an excuse, because they don't have the guts to go in and get the backstory and the facts of why that is within their own community. And they scared to cross the tracks in their own damn community. And so when you have that, I think we become a lot of, and this is why you have so many victims. People want to be more of a victim this day. And I think right now, being a victim today is like a glorified victor. You understand? The victim is the new glorified victor. Oh, I'm a victim. Everybody victims now. And they're not a victim for ethical reasons. Most people are victims for economic reasons. They just found another way to make their personalities work for them. Pure hustlers. Still prostitute themselves. You understand? And that just goes from top to bottom. Not even talking about the people on the street. The greatest prostitutes represent y'all in these political arenas. And so when it comes to that, I mean, we have to stop. I'm like, I'm not going to lay this at the blame of my children, because the fact of the matter is I'm responsible for these children, particularly being an adult. There's not an adult that's existing right now in this generation that's not responsible for this generation of children. God put us here for that reason. He made us adults at this time, they're children. And God is not going to give us no playbook. Remember, I always tell you guys this. God is not going to give you the children you were. Oh, we love to have the children. We just want to raise the children we were. God is not going to give you no cheat sheet. You're going to get the children you got. You understand? So the test can be real for you to determine whether your love is real or not. And that's the thing that I think we up against, not only as a village, but as a global society.
Well, I mean, you know, I definitely understand the scenario of what you're describing. I just sometimes concerned that there is when I talk about trauma, I'm not talking about trauma informed stuff. I'm talking about trauma informed is for everybody, right? That's for all people, right? And so that isn't a way to excuse our trauma. See, something like trauma informed, right, is to say, oh, people need to be informed of the kind of trauma that people have. So, and let me tell you why I don't like something like trauma informed. Because trauma informed means that, oh, the trauma of hearing or the trauma that my ancestor pressed upon you is traumatic to me. So we don't want to talk about it. We want to get rid of
right. There you
go. So when I talk about black trauma, I'm talking about the idea that if you do good for yourself, like you talked about this with yourself, the first thing that happened to all those people that came from out of slavery and did for themselves, trauma came to them shortly after that because of infidelity. I mean, because of people who are jealous, people who feel inferior, people who can't believe that how could these people go from this to moving above me. The same thing. Listen, the same challenge that we see today with the Latino people and other people feel about them, the immigrants. Because there's tons of immigrants that ain't Latino in America. I just want people to remember. Somehow we think the only immigrants come from Mexico, but they come from everywhere, right? And because of that, is this idea, look, they got a damn store, they eating good. How is that? They shouldn't be better than me. And that comes from the idea of people who believe they are privileged. No one should do better than me. No one should be better than us. Even if we lazy and lay down and don't do anything, we should have some privilege because we've been told that. So it's this continuation of a trauma that we always will get, even when we're successful. So I want people to not forget that that's the strength of us. That even through our traumas, we still rise. We still make it to where we need to make it to. It doesn't make it right that we have to go through those things. But what makes it a fear is that we still can always do it, because there's a lot of people who would give up and say they can't do that.
Ron, you just said something. You spoke very eloquently on that one, because you just triggered something in me. You just trigger two perspectives, and that is this, particularly when it comes to being an American. You just explained thoroughly the service of being American and the status of being an American. Let me say it again: the service of being an American and the status of being an American. I think too oftentimes that once we accomplish the status of being American, you understand, we disregard the service of being American. That's the imminent threat that immigrants have to people who has the status of being an American. That means you're legal, you got all your blah, 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 blah. And so what the immigrant does is the service of being an American is the direct threat to the status of being an American. And so what we do is we project our status on their service. You're like, yeah, they may have better work ethics than us. You understand? But they don't have more worth than us. You see how this works, right?
Right.
Ethics,
absolutely.
They have more worth. This is the thing, back to that Jedi mind trick thing. And so when you have, and this is what really perpetuates poverty. Poverty starts at status, not at service. Somebody with service will never be poor. Let me be very clear about that. Anybody who values service over status will never be poor. Anybody who values status over service will always be poor. This is why you can see the fact that with even with African American studies, but back during slavery, you saw homeless white people living in rural different parts of Oklahoma and different things like that. And they can be complete substance abuse, cracked out, meth out, or whatever the case may be, and they can get arrested. And you know what they bright spot is? You're gonna really love it, because I remember them showing this on one of the trainings I took. You know what that man bright spot was? He said, you know what? I may be a crackhead, and I may be poor, and I may be hungry, and I may be a convict, and I may be doing. He said, but at least I'm not black. You understand? The condition of his status, or his status conditioning, you understand, had him so comfortable, you understand, in his addiction condition. And so he traded his status condition for his addiction condition. And guess what his bright spot was? At least he's not black. You understand? And so now how does that translate to black people? Well, we might be like, oh, you know what? I'm an American, and you see this big argument going on back and forth with the FBA and all this other crap going on. And of course, they're just not original. I'm like, listen, the FBA, they stole that, which is called Foundational Black American. I'm like, you stole that, and not to mention you stole that from the movie Gangs of New York. What you think? Other people don't watch movies? The terminology came from the Gangs of New York when they were talking about the Irish people, and the Irish was going through a similar situations where you had what they call native Irish against the Irish that was getting off the boat. And so they formed two types of gangs, and you had foundational Irish against you had native Irish against the immigrant Irish, and that's how that whole Gangs in New York thing started on a local level. But I love the way they tied it in, where they were showing that the same thing goes on a political level. Of course, everything came to a head when you seen everybody fighting against each other. Here it is, you got two microscopic neighborhood gangs fighting against each other, and the whole country getting ready to have a civil war with the same principles. And so these guys talking about FBA, I'm like, that's not even original. You stole that from the Gangs in New York, so get over it. You're not original with anything like that. But back to my original point, when we talking about the status of being racial or sexist, same thing with men. We have a certain level of privilege with being men. Well, guess what? White people feel the same way when it comes to their privilege of being white. And so I think oftentimes, the sexists and the racists can find a common ground and empathy in each other disparities, because there's disparities in both. But if we both learn from each other, I think we become better men when we start to talk about, you know what, as a racist, you know what, I can do better in this area. But as a sexist, I can do better in this area. And just because we're black, we may not be guilty of racism, but it doesn't mean we're not guilty of sexism. And I think it's a lot of conversation that needs to happen so we can get to the soul of who we are first before we can start talking about dealing with the soul of this country.
Well, listen, bringing this, taking it back to our topic for tonight, I would come to, and I would ask this question, but I don't think I already know the answer for everybody here. Would you or would you testify against your child? And under what circumstances would you testify on them? And I think that overwhelmingly, what I find is, knowing both of you gentlemen personally, that's not something that would happen. And if there was some testimony you would be doing, you would be testimonying them to God. Right. That's who you would testify them on. Testify on them for. Not to man, because no man can judge no man can judge my child better than I can. And if I can't judge them, my Father will judge them. And that's that kind of that's a way that a lot of people don't think, or they're not. And I think that sometimes that's because people are out here walking with no laws. They have no laws. They're lawless. They don't follow their own laws. I told somebody the other day, seeing the kind of things that's going on politically, one of the big things that I seen people arguing, hey, we need to get more people. There's a guy I know who's trying to recruit more black people to be Republicans in the Republican Party. Then I heard some people saying need more people. We need to convince more of the Democrats who black to do this and do that. And I thought to myself, as I was sitting there thinking listening to those conversations, is that we should, as a people, and I'm going to be promoting this I'm going to start promoting this all the way up into the midterm elections, that black people just move away from the parties and vote independently. That's the one thing we can do, unilaterally as a people. Move away from parties. Just become independent blacks and use your vote independently.
Not the cookout parties, please. I mean, like, stick with your natural, your cookout parties and your cultural parties, but don't. I understand.
No. But here's the downfall. Now, if we talk about politics and midterms and all that stuff, remember, you cannot, unless it's a general election, you cannot vote, or you're as an independent. So just be cognizant of that before we put that narrative out there.
But here, okay.
There could be some situations where
I thought about
vote people in, that need in.
But you know what, Yvonne, you're right. Ron, no, you're right. But when it comes to actually casting your vote, yes, you can. You can vote independently because if it's on the ballot. But I actually, and I'm gonna be honest with you, way before Pierre did it, anybody else did it, I switched my party over a long time ago. I'm independent. And because I understood when I seen the equity dry up, you understand? When I seen when we gained more political positions and we started to lose less property, that's when my perspective changed. And the thing about it is, I'm saying to myself, why are we not acknowledging this? Why are we not acknowledging the fact since 1967 they signed that bill? Was it 67? Was it Lyndon Johnson?
64.
Signed the Civil Rights Bill?
64.
And since that time, we have gained more black positions and lost less black property. And I mean, to the fact that you got a study that's saying that we will have zero equity by 2053 is what they call it. We always saying we need state of emergency. And the fact of the matter that story got published and nobody talked about it tells me the position that we in. I became independent automatic.
What? And Lightborn, and I hear what you're saying, Vaughn, but this is my counter to what you're saying, right? I agree. That means that you can't select the people from either party that's going to come up to the general election, right? But who cares? Because what it does is right now in the parties that we have no power. They say we say they ain't got no power. We ain't got no percentage. We ain't got no whatever. So if that's the case, let us not even be there. Let us just wait until we'll just vote for who we feel to vote for independently. So whoever is there, when you got the two party candidates there, you know, we will make a decision, and we're not pigeonholed to have to vote for anyone. That also puts us in this political because you know what? This is why I say this. When they start talking about elections and they're looking at the parties, do you know who they're concerned about? They're not concerned about the Democratic voters. They're not concerned about the Republican voters. They're concerned about who? The independents. They're concerned about what they got to do for the independents. The candidates got to think about what they got to do for the independents. So if all black people became independents, all candidates now got to worry about us. But before, when we already at the cookout party, they already gave us some chicken, so they ain't got to do nothing else. They gave some chicken. They brought you, they let you come to they let you come to Turning Point Conference and clap you up. So in all the two parties, you go to the parties and they give you the party and they celebrate you and they use you as a catalyst to convince other people to come and don't give you anything though. And look at every one of them black fellas who was stumping and trumping. Every one of them trumped and stumped this Trump for Trump, right? In the Republican Party. They ain't get nothing. They ain't even get like a small secretary position.
But Ron,
they got nothing.
No, Ron, no, you're wrong. They did get something. You want to hear it? And I'm going to say something that speaks to every man that's listening to Vaughn. You want to hear this? Vaughn, you're going to love this. They did get something. They got their way. And ain't nothing like letting a man have his way. You understand? And so you may think that they got nothing. I'm like, no, they got their way. Because they were like, you know what? If I have to do this to get that outcome, then guess what? I'm going to do this to get that. Of course, they didn't expect nothing from Trump. Who can? His own party, and they white, they can't expect nothing from him. Trump is who he is. Trump he's not the quintessential politician, that's for damn sure. He doesn't have no loyalty to anybody, not even God himself. So he's a very, I guess what the Bible would call a very peculiar person. I mean, the closest I can get to Trump is in the Bible is Nebuchadnezzar. But nevertheless, when it comes to, I guess, the greatest equity, Ron, for African Americans, and particularly with the threat of 2053 on us, is unity. What does unity look like? Now I see we are better at building beef than we are building each other, right? And so you can say anything such as, now we got and I think she was the most reasonable, and I think she still is the most reasonable person in the world. But when you got a Michelle Obama going at Stephen A. Smith, you understand? And so when toxic, what do you call it? We always talk about male toxicity, but I'm like, that's female toxicity, because she didn't have no, and I understand her point of trying to make a point to make her podcast or whatever she does relevant, but to use something that she says, and she's the one who coined the phrase that when they go low, we go high. You understand? But for you to go low to get high ratings on your podcast, and then using Stephen A. Smith to do it, that's another thing. And so what we do now we got the most current beef is the Stephen A. Smith against the Michelle Obama beef. And so now on the heels of Black History Month, and make no mistake about this, and I can say this publicly, I've been saying it publicly on Twitter, and I'm gonna say it publicly now on this show. Black History Month will be 100 years old next year. 100 years old. Started in 1926 as Black or Negro History Week, and now it's going to be and matriculated in the Black History Month, and now it's going to be 2026, and Black History Month is going to be 100 years old, and we do not have a vision for it. What does that look like? And what does building each other look like for that 100 years versus having beef with each other? And it seems going into that 100 years of Black History Month, we've mastered and we've gotten better at having more beef with each other than actually building each other. And that's the thing I said.
Yeah, so, because that beef is easy. Listen, I continue to say that is easy for me to get on with Lightborn than to get on with somebody who don't look like me. It's easy to have a beef because then I get to stay in the status quo. I keep to remain my. And matter of fact, I may even get some kudo points. Maybe get some invites because I got a beef with Lightborn. Because I'm saying something about Lightborn. I'm saying something about Lightborn, and the person that likes what I'm saying like Lightborn is doing the same identical thing that's Lightborn doing. I'm not saying nothing about it. But I'm ready to judge and say Lightborn did this. Lightborn is like this. The same person I'm sitting on the stage with. We sitting right there together. So, you know that Lionel. I know he did this. He did this. And Lionel was like, and you are a mirror of the same person I'm sitting there talking to, and he's shaking his head to everything I'm saying. I want at no point in the interview talking to him and say, yeah, that's true about Lightborn, but y'all do the same identical things. So what make y'all different? That right there, my time on the show will end. Okay, we gotta go to commercial, and we come back and be like, hey, he had to go, folks, because there you go. It's what I call the Willie Lynch syndrome. That's all. That we live in this great idea of to keep us on defense, we never get the offense. And most of the defense is played against ourselves.
But that's and you know what pissed me off the most about that now that you brought up that Willie Lynch? Because the fact that the Willie Lynch was actually Willie and the Lynch whole curriculum was created to divide us at our ignorance, not our intelligence. You understand? Right. And the fact that the Willie Lynch curriculum is better at dividing us at our most intelligent phase of our lives than our ignorant phase in our life, something is fundamentally wrong with that. You mean to tell me when we was at the most ignorant phase in our life, we was able to overcome and triumph over the Willie Lynch curriculum? And now we're at the most intelligent phase of our lives and we're succumbing to the Willie Lynch syndrome? Something again is fundamentally wrong with that.
Because to be intelligent means to get the money. You ain't no. I had a conversation with a friend of mine today. They just said that. And listen, there is for people who work in the shadows who help everybody. There is no reward. There's no. People don't even acknowledge you. A person who do nothing for nobody, who got a lot of zeros, they're ready to give them more awards and stand up and applaud for them. So it's almost, we see that and we follow that kind of trend like, oh, well, I got to be a certain way to be a way. When really, listen, these people who go and support each other, be by people's side, not for the cameras, not for the likes, not for anybody to see. Those people who are doing it are the real heroes. The problem is we don't really ever recognize them. We don't give them their flowers like we should.
We should recognize. Let me tell you something. Von Howard, Dr. Ron Osborne, I know factually has been standing in the gap in the paint for people, not just black people, but for people for years. Because there's no benefit in black people only getting better by themselves. Let me be very clear about that. Right. Black people and society getting better and getting better globally together is where the benefit comes in there. I just don't need for my kids to live in a big house and their neighbors starving, because I'm going to eventually make my child a victim, because eventually that neighbor is going to decide, you know what, become predatory to my child, and no telling how that becomes. And so until I think we really understand, and I think the African phase, the African proverb of Ubuntu, I am because we are, until we understand what that really means. And that's the African adage, and that's the African proverbs it's the closest you can get to what love really means. I am because we are. Until we understand what that really is, until we understand that you're important to me, your children are important to me. You understand? I don't know if my daughter's going to choose your son to marry. I don't know if my daughter or my son's going to be living next to your sons. But if we raise them right, you understand? If we can raise them I'm talking with the righteousness of God, with the righteousness of sacrifice, with the righteousness that we would want people to have with us if we had nothing. And when we had nothing, because we got to remember that too. It was times we had nothing. You understand? But people still saw our humanity to get us to having something. And until we can actually infuse that in our children, and so they can first value themselves before they can start to value each other, we're going to be at a conundrum. But I think we're not at a loss, because I remember one time, and back to your point, Ron, I remember there's a lot of people like a Ron, Dr. Ron Osborne, like a Vaughn Howard, like a Lionel Lightborn, that was working in the shadows. And you know what became of that? Because I gotta put the statistics out there, baby. When we was working in the shadows, and we're talking about, I was dealing with fatherhood from the year 2000, because I was a teenage father. And so it goes back further than that. But from the year 2000, I was established with DADA, Daddy's Assistant Daddy's Association. It was a teenage fatherhood organization. That's how I met the founder of what we was doing in Fort Lauderdale. And I remember just doing that with no reward, no proclamations, no nothing. Just a need to do it because I was glad of the father I became, because I didn't believe that I could become a teenage father. I didn't think I would survive. I didn't think I was good enough. I never thought I had enough. And so my first inclination was to abandon them children I had. Well, really one child at that particular time as a teenage father. But just on a want. That's all I had was a want. And because of that want, other people came alongside of me and helped me build in that want. And then here's my son, and I got a granddaughter right now, and she's doing very good in school. And that want turned into something wonderful. And so when you have people like yourself, you have people like Vaughn that turn wants into wonderful. And so when you say there's nothing coming along and nothing being done, I'm like, no, that's not true. Because when we had those wants that turned into wonderful, the statistics said in 2015 that Black fathers was doing the best in the whole country when it comes to engagement with their children. Here it is, the people who are always at the bottom of the spectrum when it comes to statistics and fatherhood became at the top of the spectrum. And so that was 2015. That was a 2015 article that you can find in Forbes and anywhere else when you Google it. And so it didn't. So guess what? Here it is. We're quiet and we're in the shadows, right? But we was building some superior, right, superstars when it came to fathers in our community. The fact that we can get a recognition, and the study would say that Black fathers miraculously are doing the best in the country when it comes to engagement of their children in all other cultures. And not saying all other cultures is bad, but to see the bottom come to the top is something miraculously and a miracle within itself. And so I can't say that it goes unrewarded, because the Bible even says, don't be weary in well doing, because in due time you'll reap if you faint not. And so my wife, Ron, my wife even came here talking about, it wasn't Ted. She said,
it was the other bull.
She said with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but I just gonna let you cook.
But that went by really fast, man. For us, we did a 3-on-3, baby. We did a 3-on-3, and we already at 8:31. This conversation really got good.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was one that could, enter like, and as I say all the time, folks, you can see the topics right now. If you're watching, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button so you can know when we're coming on. One of the big parts, and I'll say that you may see the topic and think it's going to be one way, but in the words of Marlo from The Wire, you want it one way, but it's going to be another. But it's the other way, and that's something I truly believe, that everything shouldn't be what you think it's going to be. It could be something else, and that operates in all kinds of ways. And it leaves you for the opportunity to really have dialogue that's not staged. Now, like I say, not staged and filled with propaganda or somebody's agenda or somebody. Like, so Lightborn can say anything you want to say. I can say anything I want to say. Vaughn can say, you can say anything you want to say because it's your thoughts. And we're not here to regulate it, because this is how real people operate in the real world. If we could channel this for our people, right, and be okay to say, hey, stop saying that we got to be monolithic on how we do everything. We could come together as a people and recognize that, hey, they do it this way. And these are things we respect about how they do as a tribe. We do things this way. They respect those things. Not say, oh, the way y'all do it is wrong. Y'all need it. That's a very European-centric way to do things, a colonizer way to do things. That you come somewhere and tell people, these are the ways that you should do things that we feel comfortable about and we like. And anything that we don't like, you can't do. Matter of fact, we don't want you to do anything. Just do what we do, how we do it. And then that's what ended up happening. So I say I keep that in mind, that we can come together every day. We just have to understand that coming together don't mean we got to be the same. It's just that we got to realize that when everybody see us, they see us the same. That don't mean we got to see each other the same. I want you to repeat what I just said. When people see it, we have to be under the same understanding. When people see us, they see us the same. We have to realize that we don't have to see each other the same, because guess what? They don't see each other the same. No matter how much we might see them the same, they don't see each other the same. They handle things way different. That's why you got some of them that can be on the same level with us, trying to itch and scratch for something to eat. And then you have the other side of them who throwing food in the trash. That's just how I go. You never know. I want to thank you guys.
I thought you were going to break into a Jesse Jackson monologue and say, repeat after me. I am. I thought that's where you had.
No, I'm going to get us there. But I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Thank Lightborn. Definitely want to thank Travis for being there earlier. Hey, let me get this comment on there. My man Larry Jordan. Larry Jordan, let me say something to you, brother. We got a B.O.B. out on you. B.O.B. Bring in.
He think he just hide with his little wife and live a little cushy life, but we looking out for you, Larry Jordan. My wife been asking about you too.
Yes, sir. We need to see you sooner than later. We need to look at your face and make sure you're okay, my brother. So thanks for watching tonight. I'm glad that you was here. With that being said, hey, fathers, let's repeat after me. I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
I am a man of respect.
Fathers, I say that I am.
I am.
I say that you are.
You are.
I say that we are.
We are.
Championship fathers! Boy, if you don't know, we'll look at that, boy. There's some pythons, real pythons. That being said, we like to keep our kids on our shoulders, our families on our back, and we can't wait to see you when you get back, Larry Joy. With that said, tonight, thank you for joining us. Join us here next week, same time, same channel for the Fatherhood Think Tank, and we'll be back. Holla!